cash out to consolidate debt, or you could refinance to eliminate private mortgage insurance. No matter what's happening with the housing market, it's always a smart move to call us at 800-QUICKEN. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 4.18%, APR 4.35%. Experience the confidence that comes from working with a mortgage partner that has your best interest in mind. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 3rd year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call 800-QUICKEN today or go to QuickenLoans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Visit jdpower.com for award information. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
An Illinois woman will soon get a piece of priceless space memorabilia back from the government.
3, 2,
NASA's Apollo 11 mission left 11-year-old Nancy Carlson transfixed. So when a lunar samples return bag went on the auction block a few years ago, she bought it for $995. A NASA curator offered to test it for her. It was real, and then the space agency held on to it. Carlson took a down-to-earth approach to get it back. She hired lawyer Christopher McHugh.
She bought it from the government. They sold it to her. So it's really as simple as that.
Carlson may let a museum display the bag after she gets it back. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Last-minute preparations underway for the Academy Awards, which are tomorrow night. So what can we expect from the Oscars?
The design of the show will be Art Deco in order to evoke a sense of Hollywood's golden age, says producer Jennifer Todd.
We're big movie buffs. We've watched the Oscars for a long time. A lot of our favorite Oscars go back quite a ways away and had those great old film clips that made you want to watch movies, want to work in movies. And so we want to bring back that sort of goosebump feeling when you see the old and new of film.
Producer Michael DeLuca describes something that sounds like those Grammy mashups.
I think we found a way to bridge the generations, too, and have people with that kind of gravitas also meet the generation that inspired them.
How that'll work? Find out Sunday night. Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Hollywood.
This is ABC News.
We all know that life can get a little hectic. That's why the mattress you sleep on determines whether or not you hit the ground running each morning. With a Beautyrest Silver mattress, you'll wake up refreshed and ready to go. Beautyrest Silver pairs sophisticated design with intuitive features, like dual cool technology fiber, designed to keep the mattress cool and fresh, and back care support. Embrace the day ahead. Get the sleep you deserve. Get Beautyrest Silver.
Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area this afternoon, our high should be 57. Humidity mostly sunny as winds gust to 30 miles an hour. There's a good chance of rain tonight with mostly cloudy skies. A low 42 with winds to 30 miles an hour. There's a chance of a shower Sunday. We'll have a mostly sunny day with a high 49 with winds to 25 miles an hour. For the Inland Empire, we'll have mostly sunny skies this afternoon with a high 59. For the desert cities, it'll be sunny, our high 66. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Hello, listeners. This is Christopher from The Christopher Show. Hey, if you missed one of our shows here at KMET, don't worry about it. You can go to our webpage, and that's KMET1490am.com. Go to the homepage, click on the SoundCloud tab, and hear any show anytime you want.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome back. Constitution Radio right here on KMET 1490 AM, KMET1490am.com, and you can check out what I do at politicalpistachio.com and douglasvgibbs.com. Hit the books link if you want to check out my books, radio link for the radio shows, Constitution link for classes of public speaking, and so forth. And it is a wonderfully sunny day here in Southern California. You know, it's funny. We've gotten all this rain, which wasn't expected. And I was talking to someone of the leftist political persuasion and saying, well, gosh, you know.
In California, you found some of those?
Yeah. And I was talking to them, and I said, well, gosh, you know, I wish all that money you guys have been putting into the bullet train and sanctuary cities would have gone towards reservoirs. And he said, and I quote, well, you know what? It's actually a surprise. We figured there would be drought for the next 50 years because of global warming. So they're using the global warming hoax as an excuse not to do the infrastructure spending necessary regarding water and so on and so forth. In fact, I was reading that the reservoir up there at Oroville, which is having its problems, there have been recommendations to do maintenance upkeep that they had refused to spend money on because, they want to spend it on other things like sanctuary cities and bullet trains that no one will ride and things like that. Does that surprise you, Alex?
Not at all. I was just thinking that the term that I had been reaching for was cognitive dissonance. And the intellectual, the real intellectual, he has this automatic response when he comes across things that don't compute.
Right.
But the true believer is taught to ignore incongruities in their thinking in order to look at the campuses today. If you have a different idea, if you're a conservative, you're not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to pollute the minds of these poor innocent learners with contrary opinion. And that's
but out
all
the other
part
side
and
of their
parcel.
mouth, they'll say they support free speech.
No, they'll always say they support free speech, but it's like they support free.
Well, it kind of goes back to that a quote that I've used before on the program by William F. Buckley. Liberals claim to want to give a hearing to other views, but then are shocked and offended to discover there are other views. As we move forward here, I think it sounded like we were losing Alex there, so we'll find out if we get him back. The Marine Stephen Gern, United States Marine retired Stephen Gern. Are you familiar with who I'm talking about there, Dennis? He was the Marine that had that video out there in Iraq, and he was talking about Trump's. And if I'd have been thinking ahead of time, I would have sent the audio to Sean. He could be playing it. But this is a Marine who had basically spent a few minutes talking about Trump's immigration policy regarding refugees from these terrorist countries that have a high number of terrorists in them, these Muslim-dominated countries. And he was talking to some of his fellow workers in Iraq and that he worked with, and Muslims, and he said, hey, if I went out into the streets of your neighborhoods, what would happen?
Yeah, they said you'd be killed.
You'd be killed.
Yeah.
And so he talks about this. Well, the video just got this unbelievable number of hits. And because it went viral, he was told it wasn't safe for him to be in Iraq anymore, and he was flown home. He did another video of him in the empty plane, that they had sent a plane out there just for him to bring him home. And then he was on Sean Hannity to be interviewed. He didn't change his tune. He said it like it is. This is a person who has worked with and has been around Muslims in Muslim countries, who understands the problem with Islam or Islamic terror. Now, I want to say this, because I had lunch with a Muslim earlier this week. Very nice woman. Very sweet. Are there such things as moderate Muslims like this woman portrayed? I don't know. I don't know what goes on in her head, but if I was to take my conversation for face value with her, she's a very nice person. She can't stand the violence. She about the only thing that was consistent with what I already thought about Muslims was she thought that Jews were the problem of the world. But aside from that, she very easy to get along with, a very nice woman. And I really enjoyed the conversation and the lunch and spending time with her. But that said, as I told her, the problem is most of the terrorism in the world is Islamic, or at least calls itself as a part of Islam. And you go back into history, and it has been too. Right back to the Barbary Wars that we fought against an Islamic caliphate on the North African coast. So, our United States Marines, speaking of Mr. Stephen Gern here, they're called leathernecks. Why? Because during the Barbary Wars, they wore leather collars to protect themselves from being beheaded. Islam was demanding a tribute if you went through their waters or their lands. That's part of the reason why the Portuguese and the Spanish and other colonial powers of the time started searching for another way to get to the Orient. Because if the land route went through Muslim lands and it was dangerous, or you'd have to pay a tribute. So they wanted a sea route around it. Portuguese found one down along the southern end of Africa. Columbus, an Italian, went to the Spanish, who had just gotten rid of the Muslim majority out of Spain and wanted to reunite Spain and have something to reunite them over, funded Columbus's trip to try to get the Orient by heading west. So, Islam has a history of being an obstacle and being a danger to Western society. That's there. And all Stephen Gern did was voice that. And now he's on Fox News, and his video went viral. But it's fascinating. He said what we all know, but we're being told is wrong. And he said this: if I can't go out on the streets in a Muslim country and be safe, why would I want people from those countries out on the streets in my country? Is essentially what he said. Dennis, what's your thoughts?
Well, I saw a video about 2 weeks ago, and I believe it was, you can Google it, but it has to do with the peace conference in Scandinavia in 2013, and the discussion was on moderate versus extreme, as you have brought up, and they had several, I'll just say clerics, 3 or 4, on the stage, and the entire group was Muslims, and the questions they were asking, and they went through, how do we feel about, A, B, C, and D, and they all the Muslims there were saying, yeah, we think that, homosexuals ought to be stoned or whatever. And when he made the comments, they all said, yeah, we agree. Show of hands, 90% of the hands were going up. And he basically, in a very sarcastic way, smiling, was saying, these are not extremist views. These are the regular views. This is the moderate view. Muslims believe A, B, C, and D, and then when people say that, there's Muslim extremism, it's not extremism.
Well, Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, didn't he say that in a quote? He says, hey, there is no, see, what did he say? There is no Muslim extremism. Islam is Islam.
Well, and that's in effect what these guys were saying. But he went through, 2 or 3 or 4 bullet points, whether it be about Jews or Christians, or whether it be about Sharia compliance, whether it be about sexual, social behavior interaction. He just says, well, what do we believe? And they all put their hands up, and they were all kind of laughing with him, just kind of saying, well, yeah, this isn't extremism. This is just, what our beliefs
mainstream
are.
Islam.
That's right.
Well, Alex, you're back with us here. Good to see you, buddy. We're talking about Stephen Gern, the United States Marine from Iraq, or former Marine. Well, I guess there's no such thing as a former Marine,
he's a
inactive Marine.
He's not even inactive, but yes.
Yeah. Well, he, did this viral video about not being able to walk in the streets of Iraq. So he says, well, if I can't even walk safely through the streets of Iraq because I'm an American, why would I want those people from that country walking the streets of my country?
No, he was there as a contractor, though, at the time.
Yeah, he was there as a contractor, right. So but he was a United States Marine. And, well, once you're a Marine, always a Marine.
Right.
Trust me, my dad was a Marine. I know this. But now he's back home, and he's all over Fox News and all sort of stuff. But he was removed from Iraq because it became a danger for him to be there because of what he said.
Yeah, they knew what he looked like, and his fellow friends there, call them friends. I mean, he was living with them and talking to them. And they just said, yeah, you go out there, you don't have to worry about ISIS taking you out. Just the regular people.
Yeah, the locals will take you out.
Yeah, the locals. They know who you are now. They would take you out.
You're done for. What? Are you familiar with this, Alex? I don't hear him. So so we'll wait till we. You lost him again. Well, poor Alex. See, Alex should be driving out here to the studio. I'm teasing him, of course. I'm glad he calls in now. But well, let's go on to the next topic then. While we're waiting for everything to get straightened out with with Alex's connection, Obamacare. There's a lot of people worried the GOP is not going to repeal Obamacare. Everything's been going slow. Now, Paul Ryan specifically said the Congressional Budget Office was scoring a specific repeal Obamacare plan, but yet members of the House Freedom Caucus have said they have seen no such bill. So, you know, what were we supposed to do here? We haven't seen anything moving on Obamacare. Will it be repealed or will it not be? During the campaign, I was alarmed by the repeal and replace sentiment from the Trump camp. I don't want to replace. I want to repeal. You know, the federal government has no constitutional authority to even be involved in health care, health insurance. And originally we were told the insurance companies were the problem, and that's why, you know, health care was so out of whack. Well, if that's the case, how is making government the insurance company better? If a third-party payer is the problem, shouldn't we work towards getting government out of and insurance out of the patient-provider dynamic? House Representatives and Senate are who needs to get the repeal started in the first place. It was a piece of legislation. President can't do it. It has to be Congress. They've got to start it. Yet we've got members saying there's nothing on the docket. Meanwhile, at their town halls, the lefties are screaming at them about Obamacare. Is the GOP intimidated and backing down from fully repealing Obamacare? Time is running out. Now, Congress passed the fiscal year 2017 shell budget resolution, Resolution 3, in January, which was supposed to start a filibuster-proof process of repealing Obamacare through budget reconciliation. No action seems to have followed up. It seems Congress is still in the process of writing the budget reconciliation bill repealing Obamacare. And the longer it takes, the more Americans are going to begin to believe that Obamacare is not going to be repealed in the first place. And the longer it takes to repeal, the longer before we can heal the nation's healthcare system, and the longer Americans have to suffer under the current shortcomings of government-induced healthcare. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell agrees. He said in a recent interview, I don't think we have the luxury of this Obamacare repeal dragging out for a lengthy period of time. There is a reason to wrap it up. This is a very intense effort of consultation with all three branches about how to do this in the relatively near future. And we want to complete this exercise before we get to the second budget reconciliation for tax reform. April 28th is the funding deadline. May 3rd is the date when insurance companies must submit proposed premiums for 2018 Obamacare plans. If the Republicans fully repeal Obamacare, they've got to beat those dates. Otherwise, the garbage kicks into another year. So even worse is the fact that some Republicans are saying they believe that we can repair Obamacare, or some members of the GOP actually oppose repeal because they won't do it unless there's a replace that can be simultaneously put into place. Democrats will never vote to repeal Obamacare, and the Democrats seem not to agree on a replacement bill. Delaying repeal prolongs the crisis and increases the likelihood that repeal will never happen. Therefore, repeal needs to be as soon as possible before the Democrats convince more Republicans to get nervous about it, and while it's possible to use budget reconciliation so that the vote is only a simple majority needed. Congress can use budget reconciliation to repeal Obamacare so that it doesn't matter what the Democrats think or do. Only a simple majority would be needed without a need for cloture. Congress should write and pass a one-sentence reconciliation bill that fully repeals Obamacare and be done with it. Turn back the clock to before Obamacare even existed and go back to what it was before. Then the Republicans can work on ways to get the federal government completely out of the way of the healthcare industry. Remove any obstacles like the unconstitutional federal restriction that keeps insurance companies from selling across state lines. Healthcare savings accounts may not be a bad idea either. The idea is to remove the federal footprint from the industry and create free market choices that strengthen the patient-provider relationship. As that happens, the Republicans also must make sure Neil Gorsuch gets confirmed to the Supreme Court quickly so that the left's challenges fall flat, so that they have nowhere to go with their challenges because the Supreme Court will go against them. The thing is, the Republicans need to act quickly. If they don't get this going, time may become their enemy. and run out. After all, the left is doing what it can to sabotage everything. And the next election is right around the corner. Also, our break is right around the corner. After the break, we'll discuss what I just told all of you. And remember, if you want to call in, if you want to be a part of the program, you're welcome to do so. 951-922-3532. See you after the break.
Tired of working for others? Want to regain your freedom and flexibility in life? Want to invest in a successful business model with proven results and unlimited earning potential? Then Franchise Experts 360 can change your life. Franchise Experts 360 is a franchise consulting firm. Franchise Experts 360 represents 400 plus franchisors from all different industries. Franchise Experts 360 will work with you to find the franchise business model that fits your budget and lifestyle. Whether you're looking for a home-based retail, mobile service, direct ownership, or absentee ownership business model, Franchise Experts 360 has a franchise that's right for you. Visit franchiseexperts360.com. That's franchiseexperts360.com to contact our office. Our Franchise Experts 360 consulting services are at no cost to our clients. That's right, no cost, as we are paid by the franchisors. Change your life, invest it into yourself, grow a successful business model, and live the American dream. Franchise Experts 360 is your key to success. Contact franchiseexperts360.com. The second hour of Constitution Radio is partly brought to you by the Bravas Corporation and the new documentary film, Enemies Within, based on the book of the same name by Trevor Loudon. I have personally viewed this movie and have met and interviewed the author, Trevor Loudon, and if everyone in this country saw this film and took the time to understand and apply its important message, this country would immediately begin to solve its problems, and its future would dramatically change for the better. This movie rips the mask off of over 100 members of Congress who are under the control of socialists, communists, and the Muslim Brotherhood, who are violating their oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States. They are actually working to undermine the Constitution of this country and to restrict the liberties of all Americans. In fact, based on their known associations, these members of Congress could not even pass a standard FBI background check to get a job in the local post office. And here they are in the halls of government. I encourage everyone to see this movie. It is available at enemieswithinmovie.com. You can rent it or buy it. Go to enemieswithinmovie.com and get your copy today, and then tell your friends. If you really want to understand why the Democrats do what they are doing, you need to know their masters. Learn who their masters are by going to enemieswithinmovie.com.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com. Welcome back. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KMET 1490 AM. Second hour. We are in the midst of the second hour. And prior to the break, I spent the tail end of the last segment hammering on Obamacare, or at least the Republican slow movement on the repeal of Obamacare. Dennis, you heard everything I had to say about it. What's your thoughts?
Well, the challenge is the ongoing debate is what do they replace it with?
Well, should it be replaced at all? I mean, the federal government has no authority to be involved. So shouldn't it go back to what it was? And I know everybody says, well, no, we only go back to what it was. Well, wait a second. Hang on. Go back to what it was. And then start working on ways to remove governmental influence and make it more of a private industry, and also enable things to happen that will loosen the clutches of the insurance companies and the things that cause higher costs. Give me an example. How about we encourage that the states have tort reform to get rid of these frivolous lawsuits? That'll help bring down the cost of malpractice insurance and so on and so forth. Health savings accounts, allow push towards insurance companies really providing catastrophic insurance and get back towards the patient-provider relationship when it comes to simple things. I mean, why do I go to the doctor with an insurance policy for the sniffles when I don't don't charge my insurance for an oil change? Well, my insurance company is for the catastrophic damage to my car. Basic maintenance should come out of my own pocket, and that keeps the prices lower.
Well, what Obamacare in part has done is taking some people that had insurance that no longer have insurance because they can't afford it.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
Okay. And then it's taken people that had not had insurance and subsidized them. Maybe they had a pre-existing condition, they lost it, whatever, and now they have it.
Right.
Okay. So now in undoing it, you're going to have the people that are better off now because of Obamacare that didn't have it. You're, quote, throwing them to the wolves. All right. And then you're trying to undo. It's kind of like how do you unsay something you've already said? So now they've got themselves boxed in. Now, do they try to do like you were saying? Let's just go back to what we had and undo Obamacare.
Of course, now you got a bunch of people who are subsidized or suddenly without insurance.
But to do that, each state would probably have to fund some type of a instrument.
Well, most states already have these types of systems.
Well,
it's like when my son had cancer when he was, it was about 12 years ago or 11 years ago, and he couldn't afford insurance, so he went to the state system,
right.
Medi-Cal, and they took care of it, and then he paid back a portion of the bill monthly, and the rest of it was picked up by a state. And that's totally constitutional. If a state wants to have a safety net,
right,
that's fine. It's the federal influence that is wrong here.
Well, and again, what they've done is they've put ink in the water now. They've changed it, and then how do you go back to the clear water without doing damage to the people?
Because you just suddenly repeal it. Now you got all this chaos, and then the left says, "Oh, look at all these people without insurance," and so.
Well, granted, because then they didn't have it before. I had a conversation with a doctor friend of mine a number of years ago, and he brought up the fact that not that long ago, it was basically FDR that really made healthcare what it is today.
Right.
People had separate health policies, just like they had separate car policies. And then during World War II, and again, I'm just kind of throwing this out as a general understanding of what he was telling me, but that there were wage freezes.
Right, there was wage freeze, and so in order for an employer to encourage the better applicants, they offered benefits.
Right, so now they started doing benefits because they couldn't do the wages.
Now think about this for a second. So it was a Democrat that created this problem. And now the Democrats are saying they got to fix the problem they created.
Well, what I wonder is if up till 1940 or whatever year it was, the health care of Americans was done primarily individually.
It was a patient-provider relationship, and that's why doctors, did house visits or doctor. What do they call them? Doctor visits to the house or whatever. House calls. That's what it was called. House calls. I remember when I was a kid, the doctor had his own, hey, you can't pay the whole bill. It's okay. We'll let you pay it monthly and whatever. They did whatever they could to get your business because their business was directly with you. Now there's a third party deep pocket, part of it.
All the costs have gone up and the technology's changed, and you can't have the doctor come to your place because of all the equipment he has at his place. But you can still go to his place. My question would be, what would happen if you tried to unwind that and say, hey, look, insurance companies, you used to sell a bunch of individual policies 60, 70, 80 years ago, and you did fine. At least supposedly you did.
Well, it's going to be a slow process.
Maybe
you obviously can't flip the switch.
No, I understand that.
So here's the question. What would get us back in that direction? Would it be health savings accounts? Would that do it?
Well, I think that's one of many arrows that goes into the quiver.
Okay. One of the many arrows going to the quiver. I like that. Okay, Alex, you're back with us. You heard us talking about Obamacare. You didn't get a chance to hear my soliloquy prior to the break, but you heard our discussion just now. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm sorry I missed your soliloquy. I go back 70 years, and I can remember the doctor pulling up in front of our house, and he made his house call, and there was no question of it being such a serious expense that it was going to keep us from paying the mortgage or something. It was a simple fee, and there was no controversy about it. Anytime the government gets involved, the two best examples are colleges and medical expenses today.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When the government gets involved, and you put your finger on it, it's that third party. Instead of dealing directly with the college, you're dealing with government insurance. Instead of dealing directly with the doctor, you're dealing with an insurance again, and that's where the what would you call it? The thrift goes out of it. Everybody wants to go for the big dollar.
Right. Well, and what happens too is now you've got doctors. Well, you've got all these lobbyists in Washington also trying to figure out how can they save the insurance company money and make the doctors more money. And the patients, we really don't have our own lobbyists in Washington or Sacramento or wherever. And so
your elected representatives, but nonetheless.
Yeah, well, there you go. So they're trying to figure out how to make more money, save money, and then what happens is the doctor now starts getting sued because of whatever reason. So now we got all these, now we need tort reform. His malpractice insurance goes up. The deep pockets of the insurance companies now, the equipment, cost of doing services goes up. Now, to protect himself because his malpractice insurance is going up, he's now checking for everything, even if it's not necessary. And so the higher use of all of those things drives up the cost because now, you got to make room for all of these new tests, and it's like this snowball going down the hill.
Well, one thing you could do, and I actually have been a licensed health insurance salesman in the state of California, and there's a lot of federal mandates
right
that insurance companies have to have. And the question can be asked, if I were to buy my own individual policy, I would have to have psychological testing. I'd have to have support for alcoholism. I've never drunk in my life. That's not an issue. I'd have to have the benefit I'd be paying, for pregnancy. I'm a guy. I'm not married. I mean, I'm not going to get myself pregnant here. So everybody's paying for everything, and policies could be customized.
Or what if I wanted a policy that said, hey, I'm going to pay for my doctor visits. I'm going to pay for all this.
That's right.
I just want a policy that says if I wind up in a car accident and it's $100,000 to put me back together, my insurance covers that. But all the smaller stuff, I really don't care. Why can't I get that policy? Well, because of government influence. Government has disallowed it.
Well, the policies I sold were individual policies, and they were a la carte policies, but we still had the federal mandate problems,
right?
Where we're still trying to be cost effective, and insurance companies really don't want to deal with them. I mean, the guys that were insuring us, they knew there was a niche in the market, and we were filling that niche, and so they would underwrite the policies and get them sold. But the big money, is going out and getting a company with 50 or 100 or 500 or 10,000 employees, and all the money there now it gets all washed in, and there's no real oversight for that. Federal government can't really, they don't negotiate well.
Well, it should be state by state, and insurance companies should be able to cross state lines.
Well, that's another issue, is you have mandates to where only certain companies. So if you open it up to everybody, everybody could quote, and you took the federal mandates out, and you had competition, and you could let people pick what they want a la carte.
Right.
The person who wants to have children, and you could put down, do you want to have abortion coverage or not have abortion coverage? Do you want to have this coverage or not have this coverage? If you're not going to get pregnant, then why should a woman have to pay for it? Either. It ought to be on a checklist. But because everybody's got to be covered for everything to drive the cost down for everybody, most people are paying for a lot of stuff that they don't need at all. And it's just all a big grab bag.
One of the things that struck me as interesting, and I'm going to end this conversation with this. Back in the 90s and the early to mid 2000s, up until 2008, I was in the construction industry. And the construction company paid for almost all of my, well, they did. They actually covered me completely, a percentage of my wife, but I had to pay for my kids.
Right.
I was paying $695 a month for my insurance.
For your whole family.
For me, my
Right.
wife, and the kids. Now I was making enough I could absorb that. Think about that. That sounds like a lot of money, folks. I had a friend at the time in Toronto, and she was telling me how socialized medicine, government being involved, was great at first. You get sick, go to the doctor, take care of you, go home, no bill. Then the government started realizing that it costs money to do these things. And they started not covering certain things. So if you wanted to have everything covered, in other words, cover what the government wouldn't cover, you had to purchase supplemental insurance. By the time we had our conversation, she was telling me, if you were to figure out how much she pays a month in her taxes for her socialized medicine and the cost of her supplemental insurance, she was paying more than me. So it kind of went back to the saying as Obamacare was approaching. You think insurance is expensive now. Wait until it's free. This has been a catastrophe. It has ruined our healthcare system. And it is also unconstitutional. There's nothing, I don't care what John Roberts said, there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that gives the federal government any authority over anything that has to do with medical procedures, anything. None of the federal government's business. You want it to be their business? Amend the Constitution. Otherwise, federal government shouldn't even have a say over whether or not they're selling across state lines. Commerce Clause, misunderstanding. Commerce Clause is not supposed to give the federal government that kind of blanket regulation. It's federal government's only supposed to be involved when there's a dispute when it comes to interstate, should I say, commerce, but interstate commerce. Yeah, that's the right word. But because none of the federal government's business. None of their business in the first place. So my attitude is repeal the sucker. Oh, yeah, but what about, those people will be back where they were. We'll figure something out. Let the states deal with it. Get the federal government out of it. I bet health costs would drop dramatically the more you got government out of the way, government regulation out of the way, and you reduce the interference. Guarantee you these costs would come down. When we return, White House correspondent April Ryan defends accusing President Trump of racist language that he never actually used. When we return, don't go anywhere.
Tired of working for others? Want to regain your freedom and flexibility in life? Want to invest in a successful business model with proven results and unlimited earning potential? Then Franchise Experts 360 can change your life. Franchise Experts 360 is a franchise consulting firm. Franchise Experts 360 represents 400 plus franchisors from all different industries. Franchise Experts 360 will work with you to find the franchise business model that fits your budget and lifestyle. Whether you're looking for a home-based retail, mobile service, direct ownership, or absentee ownership business model, Franchise Experts 360 has a franchise that's right for you. Visit franchiseexperts360.com. That's franchiseexperts360.com to contact our office. Our Franchise Experts 360 consulting services are at no cost to our clients. That's right, no cost, as we are paid by the franchisors. Change your life, invest into yourself, grow a successful business model, and live the American dream. Franchise Experts 360 is your key to success. Contact franchiseexperts360.com. The second hour of Constitution Radio is partly brought to you by the Broadus Corporation and the new documentary film, Enemies Within, based on the book of the same name by Trevor Loudon. I have personally viewed this movie and have met and interviewed the author, Trevor Loudon. And if everyone in this country saw this film and took the time to understand and apply its important message, this country would immediately begin to solve its problems, and its future would dramatically change for the better. This movie rips the mask off of over 100 members of Congress who are under the control of socialists, communists, and the Muslim Brotherhood, who are violating their oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States. They are actually working to undermine the Constitution of this country and to restrict the liberties of all Americans. In fact, based on their known associations, these members of Congress could not even pass a standard FBI background check to get a job in the local post office. And here they are in the halls of government. I encourage everyone to see this movie. It is available at enemieswithinmovie.com. You can rent it or buy it. Go to enemieswithinmovie.com and get your copy today. And then tell your friends. If you really want to understand why the Democrats do what they are doing, you need to know their masters. Learn who their masters are by going to enemieswithinmovie.com.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com. Okay, time for the final segment here on this 2-hour ride of the local show with the global footprint, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Here's the next topic on the table, and I hate to do this to Mr. Alex Ferguson, because we're just not going to be able to go over your book because now it's later in the show and we really didn't have that chance. But I tell you what, you asked about something else that you wanted to say. So why don't you go ahead and throw that at us in lieu of being able to do your book report?
Well, I was just going to ask you if you know what you call a psychic midget that just robbed a bank.
I'm afraid to ask.
A small, medium, at large.
A small, medium, at large. That's pretty good. I like that. Okay. April Ryan, White House correspondent, defends accusing President Trump of racist language he never actually used. And interestingly, Mediaite, which is a leftist site, was the one that drew attention to this. She told Sean Spicer that while on the campaign trail, Donald Trump said things like, we made this country, meaning white America, not necessarily black. When Spicer denied he had said any such thing, Ryan insisted, no, he said that. I heard him say that. Now, Mediaite tried to give Ryan the benefit of the doubt and thought that maybe she made a mistake. It could be quickly corrected. And they even left open the possibility that that they were in error. She really did hear it. Well, the American Urban Radio Network's bureau chief came out and defended herself on Twitter, posted a link to a video that claims backs up her accusation. April Ryan tweeted this video that, and you read it, I mean, you hear what he says on it, and I don't know how you can present this video and accuse the president of racist language. This is a malicious attack, in my opinion. Here's what he said in the video. We cannot let our First Amendment rights be taken away from us. We can't let it. We have the right to speak. We're a law-abiding people. We're people that work very hard. We are people who've built this country, made this country great, and we're all together, and we want to get along with everybody. But when they have organized, professionally staged wise guys, we've got to fight back. We've got to fight back. Now, you can only read and hear the above and come away with a racially exclusionary message if you're already convinced Trump was a racist and was ready to see racism in any mundane statement he made. There's just nothing in it to suggest he was speaking specifically about white America. This It's a stretch. He was talking about his supporters. Now, she's of course April Ryan is of course perfectly at liberty to listen to a Trump speech and imagine all sorts of things. She brought her assumptions into her reporting and threw them at the White House as though they were facts, and simply not clear. It simply is not clear that Trump said, "We made this country," meaning white America. I don't know how she heard that. That's a highly subjective interpretation, and a dubious one at that. But what really gets me is that we even have to spend time on this factually challenged question in the first place. She's a veteran reporter, well-respected in the briefing room, or at least that's what I'm told. And so here's what will happen. She'll receive deference and benefit of the doubt that almost certainly would never be given to a blatantly false question from, say, someone who's on the right. Any comments? Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, well, they hear what they want to hear and shut out all the rest. This is typical true believer.
So the collectivism and the religion all balled up into one.
They live in a separate reality.
Right. Okay, I got you. What's your thoughts, Dennis?
Well, things can move so fast. If I were her and I got hit with a question of something that is being reported and I didn't know firsthand what was said or what the context is, I think rather than try to respond with a yay or a nay, I would just say, I'm not familiar with that. I need to look into it more before I make a comment. If you go with the assumption that what was said was true, then you're reinforcing fake news. Maybe they think there's a risk by saying they aren't familiar with it, because it's like, well, why aren't you up to speed? Well, you can't hear everything that's all being said at the same time and be all-knowing when you get hit with a question. And I think sometimes the best response is, well, I'm not familiar with that. Let me look into it and I'll get back to you. Then there's no controversy.
Right. All right. Well, now that said, Black Reporter, and which is fascinating to me, that the Democrats follow, that the black population, I say, follow the Democrat Party, because the Democrat Party has been the enemy of the black people throughout history. Matter of fact, at the next Constitution Association meeting on March 4th, we have a black historian who's going to be speaking at Myrna's Cafe in Menifee. 5 o'clock we begin on March 4th in the evening. Myrna's Cafe, 26850 Cherry Hills Boulevard in Menifee. Our speaker, Ashley Gilliam, black historian, to set the record straight that night you can learn more at constitutionassociation.com. Now, since it's Black History Month, I wanted to throw this out there. In the preamble of the United States Constitution, after listing the reasons for the creation of the federal government, more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide for the common defense, are listed two results for what the Founding Fathers hoped to achieve, which is promote general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty. And after listing the results, they indicate that while the Constitution was written for the purpose of promoting the general welfare and securing the blessings of liberty to themselves, it says ourselves in the preamble, they also wrote that the aim was to do these things for their posterity as well. Posterity is a term meaning future generations. The definition goes beyond one's children or our children's children. Posterity includes those not yet born.
Well, and also, Doug, if I can go back to a comment you made, what's the difference in the spelling of ourselves versus posterity?
We'll get there. We'll get to that.
There?
We'll get to that.
I'll leave that.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. In the Declaration of Independence, the authors wrote that all men are created equal. The Constitution indicates that the blessings of liberty also belongs to future generations. Slavery, however, muddied the ideals these men sought to protect, promote, and preserve. How could the Founding Fathers discuss equality in the eyes of God when in the eyes of men there was a class of people who were in slavery? Of the 55 delegates, 42 remained to the end, 39 signed the document. Less than half of them were slave owners, 25. Of those who owned slaves, many of them had inherited those slaves. Some of the delegates who owned slaves believed that slavery was a sinful practice and were abolitionists. but were not in a personal position to be able to free their slaves. George Washington freed his upon his death. Thomas Jefferson, a staunch and outspoken abolitionist who inherited his slaves based on Virginia law, was not financially able to afford to release his slaves, even upon his own death. There were over 100 slaves on his Montebello plantation, generally at any given time. While Jefferson could not afford to free his slaves, he decided to treat them with respect and kindness. One story tells of Jefferson returning from a diplomatic mission overseas, and as he walked up the road, his slaves ran to him, hoisted him on their shoulders, and carried him up the hill to the house. Jefferson believed that slavery must be abolished, but feared a blanket abolition would cause problems. So newly emancipated slaves would be steeped in poverty, and there would be trouble between the races. Besides, the Constitution reserved to the states their sovereignty. So it was not the job of the federal government to tell the states what to do on the matter. The states had to come to the conclusion to abolish slavery themselves and individually, bit by bit. A sudden blanket emancipation, Jefferson suggested, may lead to an American race war similar to the revolts in Haiti and cause a resentment between the races that may exist for many generations. Now, the word posterity in the preamble of the Constitution, however, meant the future generations of all persons, including the posterity of those who were slaves at the time of the writing of the document. The phrase, all men are created equal, included the slaves and their posterity. It was truly believed by a majority of the delegates that in the eyes of God, all persons were equal and deserving of access to their natural rights. How could the founders reconcile these beliefs while slavery continued to exist in their country that was supposed to be based on the blessings of liberty? While Jefferson was not at the Constitutional Convention, he was very influential on the proceedings. He was trading correspondence with James Madison daily. Many of the men in the convention supported the ideas of Jefferson, and over the 4 months of deliberations, those who may not have originally agreed with Jefferson came to accept his point of view of limited government and local control over local issues by the time the convention was complete. Now, to get to Dennis's point earlier, when one reads the preamble, a significant distinction between the words ourselves and posterity in the phrase secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity is present. The first letter of ourselves is lowercase, and the P in posterity is uppercase. The Constitution is a handwritten document. The persons who penned the document did not italicize for emphasis. Often, capitalization was used to place an emphasis on a word. While most of the nouns in the Constitution are capitalized, many of them were done so for the purpose of emphasis. With that concept in mind, we can better understand the reason that ourselves is not capitalized and posterity is. The founders were saying in the preamble, we wrote this Constitution to create a federal government to do the things it is authorized to do so that a general sense of well-being is achieved. And in order to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves, but we especially did it for our posterity, capital P, which includes those not yet born. All Americans not yet born, whether they be the children or children's children of the freemen or those currently in a condition of servitude. The general opinion of the founding fathers was that slavery would be abolished state by state within their lifetime. But Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died on July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Slavery, by the time of their deaths, however, had not been abolished. And the division between the slave states and the non-slave states to the north had deepened. They did not know it at the time of their deaths, but during the next generation, a war loomed. The war would be between the states, pitting brother against brother and friend against friend. Over 600,000 men would lose their lives. And the division and resentment that Jefferson feared would become a reality. We got a couple minutes for comments. Alex, why don't you go first real quick?
Yeah, well, you're talking about the difference between the pragmatist and the true believer again. The true believer would look at the Constitutional Convention and say, if I can't have it pure, if I can't get rid of slavery, then the whole thing, just blow up the whole thing. Whereas the pragmatist says, we're not ready to get rid of slavery, but we are ready to adopt this Constitution, and therefore we take it one step at a time. We take as much as we can get, and future generations will work out the rest of it.
That almost sounds like Dennis's comments towards Obamacare and the repeal also. Same kind of idea. Right?
I think that was at the time that I was disconnected.
Yeah, well, he basically said something similar about repealing Obamacare, as step by step, do what you can, and all that. But I hear what you're saying, and you're right. And most of the founders were abolitionists, and they did truly believe slavery would be gone within their lifetime.
Well, and then you've got the 20-year clause.
Yeah, there's also Article 1, Section 9, which in 1808 would enable Congress to outlaw the Atlantic slave trade, which did begin the process of eventually
cutting it back.
Right, exactly. And so they did what they could.
So, but real quick question. I know we're running out of time here. So, per the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Congress could write legislation. What's the first date they could have done that?
January 1st, 1808. They wrote it and approved it beforehand, and it in 1807, and it did go into effect on January 1st, 1808.
I couldn't play with you on the question there, but that's exactly the point. These white bigoted racists who love slaves legally did what they could do the very first day they could do it without delay, because they planned ahead of it, they looked forward to it, and they executed it.
Right.
These are the guys that are being blamed for institutional racism in the country based upon a leftist view.
And yet they
of
took
the
the
founding
steps
document.
necessary to get rid of the Atlantic slave trade
Right, and
in
they
America.
did so.
All right, we are out of time, so real quick, Alex, plug yourself.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if you haven't perused the conservativecannonade.org website, you've done yourself a disservice.
Dennis, quickly.
Enemieswithinmovie.com. Find out why the Democrats do what they do and who's backing them.
DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you. See you next week.